Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? Edgement's and Job come to you guys today with another standard deck tech update. So today we're taking a look at Esper Control, and this is the deck that I'm actually running for standard competitive play. Now you guys know I make a lot of different decks for different people. Some people suggest stuff, and I cover different decks, but this is the deck that I run most, and I run it just about every standard season, at least for a certain period of time, but with Avacyn Restored out now, I'm pretty much going to be running this up until M13, and then I'll see if I make any changes or anything like that to it. But for the most part, this is the deck that I'm running. I also wanted to take it to the PTQ on May 19th, which was a Saturday, but unfortunately I had work and wasn't able to drive out to Ohio to attend. But I am going to be using this for game day, so if you guys are looking for something to play for Avacyn Restored game day, this is definitely something to consider. It's not really a cheap deck to make, but it's definitely a really good one. So we're going to break this down into a couple of different sections, but before we do that, if you guys have any suggestions for decks that you'd like to see, please leave it in the comments below. So we are going to break this into the couple of different sections that we pretty much do in every deck tech. So first off, we're taking a look at the lands. So first off here we have Darkslick Shores, so this is going to be a 4 of, and previously in the last build that I was running with Esper Control, this was actually the Seachrome Coast, and now I switched it because I'm running more of a dependence on black, but I still want to see the blue early game because I'm running Ponder in this deck, so the 4 Darkslick Shores are pretty important. We're going to put these over here. Next we have Isolated Chapel. This is going to be a 4 of as well, giving us white and black. The deck is very heavy in white, and I also want to see a lot of black mana that I could spend here and there for certain cards. Next we have Glacial Fortress, so this is a 3 of. So I believe this stayed the same from my last build. Either it was a 2 of or it was a 3 of before, I can't really remember. Drowned Catacomb is a 2 of. It was either reversed with the 3-2 being Glacial Fortress as a 2 and Drowned Catacomb as a 3, but I don't really recall. If you guys watched the last deck tech update I did for pre-Avacyn Restored, you would know. Evolving Wilds got cut down to 2 of them. It's still really good. It's a really good card. It lets you filter through the basic lands, lets you cut out some stuff out of the deck. Also, mana fixes a little bit if you need that double color or something like that, but usually in this deck it's not really a problem. This is more so just to get rid of some of the lands so you don't see them as often, but it got cut down to 2 just because I wanted to run another plains and have more of a white base here. Speaking of which, 5 plains here, so we have 3 and another 2, so we'll put them down here. Swamps we have 3, and islands we have 2, so that's the mana base. I believe 25 lands. I'm fairly certain it's 25, but I didn't want to run 26. I definitely didn't want to go to 27. 25 is really good just because we're not going way too over the top with the mana and what we're actually going to be using in this deck, but 25 was a really good number. So now let's break down pretty much everything else in the deck. So the other 35 cards. So first off we have Gideon Jura as one of our planeswalkers. So he is going to be a 3 of. He's really good against aggro. He can make creatures redirect their damage to him. He can also use his -2 to get rid of creatures. He's also really good with a 0 ability turning into a 6/6 himself. And he can get in some nice damage there. So we're gonna, let's put him right here. Next we have Jace Memory Adept. So this is probably one of the more powerful and win condition planeswalkers of the deck. Just because more times than none he's going to be used for a 0 ability to mill opponents. Also if I'm in a tough situation and I need to board wipe or something like that, I'll use his +1 and search for something like Day of Judgement or Terminus. But like I said, more times than none it's going to be the 0 ability, and that's what really just screws people over, is being milled out, and it happens in the majority of the games. It's a really easy way to win. Alright, so 2 Jaces. 1 Tamiyo. One Tamiyo for now. I actually didn't have a second one. If you guys are actually making this deck, and in the deck list down below, it's going to be a 2 of. I'm running 3 Timely Reinforcements, which I actually ended up dropping down to 2 for online play and put in a second Tamiyo. It's a really good Planeswalker, especially if you're able to board wipe your opponent and they have like 1 creature out there or something like that. Also helps with the Keswick Wolf run, keeping that tapped down so Inkmoth doesn't trigger off and they can't deal in a lot of damage with Infect. But Tamiyo, really good Planeswalker. If you can get the ultimate off, it's really awesome just because you can keep on board wiping or something like that and stalling the game. But it depends on what situation you're in, honestly, and how you actually end up using her. So 2 Tamiyo for the deck list, because I'm basing it off of what I play online, but I just play 1 in real life. Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, so we have 2 of them here. So he's really good. He creates creatures. He also makes emblems if you already have a decent bit of presence with the other token generating cards in here. You can get in some cheap damage. Also, I do get him to his 6 and crack him for some creature / planeswalker destruction. So that is always a possibility with this deck, and it's really fun just being able to take your opponent's stuff. And planeswalkers, even if I can do that. Creatures, only 1 creature, and that's Elesh Norn, and this was a change that I made right before thinking of going to the actual PTQ. The meta so far for this season is really just kind of shifting over to aggro, especially with stuff like red-white humans, stuff like that. Once Elesh Norn hits the table, it's really less situational for you. Also, against stuff like Wolf Run, they can't activate their Inkmoth or it's going to be destroyed. Stuff like that. Elesh Norn is really just supreme. And if you can get it out there and just destroy your opponent's stuff, it's really nice, even if it doesn't survive the next turn or following turns. Alright, so 1 Elesh Norn, Entreat the Angels, and I have a nice shiny one here, but we're running it 3 of, and this is one of the win conditions for the deck. You can just create some crazy tokens with it. There's not really much to say about this card. Most people can just really see the potential just out of reading the card. You cast it for its miracle cost, and you just get a bunch of 4/4 flyers, and it's really awesome. Just trying to go a little bit faster through this deck, but Lingering Souls, this is going to be a 4 of, so this is going to produce early game blockers, late game creatures to swing in. It has a flashback for 1 generic and 1 black. It's going to create 2 flyers per casting, so ideally you can make 8 with just one go through of them, but it's a really good card just because it produces blockers early game, which is good against aggro, and like I said, late game you can swing in. So that's mainly what I use it for. So we'll put these right there. Next we have Timely Reinforcements. Like I said, 3 of them in real life. Online I actually only just run 2 of them and the other Tamiyo, and the Timely Reinforcements just goes to the sideboard, which I'll talk about later. But Timely Reinforcements, like I said, the meta is really fixated on aggro at this point, so it's really good to gain some life back, especially against stuff like humans, and also Delver if you happen to run into that, like Counterburn Delver or something like that. Gaining back life is always really good, and having some chump blockers. Next we have the draw suite of the deck, so Ponder. So this is going to be a playset, and I have my 1 altered one that I did. These are the only draw cards that we have in the deck, and it's a 4 of. Other people have tried running Think Twice, Forbidden Alchemy, stuff like that, and when it comes down to it, Ponder is the best option just because if you're hoping to go Entreat during their turn or a Temporal Mastery or something like that, with Think Twice, you're really going into the unknown. You don't know that you're going to draw it as much. But Ponder, you can set up miracles, you can set up land drops, you can set up planeswalkers. It makes the game much less situational than any of the other draw cards would, like I said, Think Twice. And with Forbidden Alchemy, you're going to be digging, and if you have to choose between 2 awesome cards, you're really just going to be screwed in the long run. But Ponder is definitely supreme in setting up stuff like miracles And speaking of miracles, we have Temporal Mastery. So this is going to be a 2 in the deck, and it's really awesome when you already have Planeswalkers on the field. You can use their ability twice in a long run, thinking about it. You get a turn, and then you get another turn where you can use the Planeswalkers. So with Gideon, you can swing in for 12 if he's unblocked. You can also make some more dudes with Sorin. You can tap down 2 things with Tamiyo, and they won't untap during your opponent's next turn. Stuff like that I've done. Temporal Mastery is just an awesome card. Just giving you another turn of being able to do stuff is really awesome, especially if you have Entreat tokens already down there, some Angels, stuff like that. Makes it just really awesome. So 2 Temporal Mastery, and we're just going to put these right here, and I'll start a new row with the rest of the cards. But Tragic Slip, really good for stuff like Ink Moth, just because that's really annoying whenever I play the Wolf Run matchup. Oftentimes decks can't really deal with the flying infect damage, and if they can, generally, even if you have Lingering Souls or something out where you're getting your 1/1s, if they have Kessig Wolf Run out there and they're able to pump it with Trample, it's not going to be really nice for you. So Tragic Slip is the really easy way to get rid of cards like that, and also if you can trigger Morbid by throwing one of your creatures as a blocker, it's always really nice. The 1 mana just makes it really awesome to be able to actually cast it. So we're going to put these up here for the removal. Yeah, there we go. Next we have Day of Judgment. It's one of the more lackluster removal cards for the format now just because of Undying and stuff like that, but it's still incredibly good. I'm still running it as a playset. I have no real reason to cut it down. It still gets the job done against stuff like humans, anything like that. Also even against like red-green aggro, it's still gonna make a decent bit of an impact. And then you can go like Lingering Souls with the flashback and get some more blockers, stuff like that. Day of Judgment is still definitely really, really good in the format, but still with like Undying stuff, it's gonna be less powerful. But like I said, again, still really good. But definitely the best way to get rid of creatures in this deck is going to be Terminus, and this is a 3 of. So essentially we have 7 board wipers in here, but Terminus is just the supreme one out of the deck. I only chose to run 3 of them just because if you end up drawing it as an extra card, you're going to have to cast it as a 6 cost, which sometimes is unfortunate if you want to do multiple things during a turn. But casting it as a miracle, which happens a lot of times, is really awesome for the deck, and I really like doing that. Just because it's put onto the bottom of their deck, it's not going to trigger off Undying, stuff like that, obviously, because they're not dying. But being able to get their stuff onto the bottom of their deck and not letting them interact with their graveyard is always really awesome. So 3 of those. Now that is the entire main board. If you guys didn't catch anything of that, the entire deck list as it should be played is down in the link below. Well, down in the links below, should I say. Now let's take a look at the sideboard and just some options. I'm not showing you my entire sideboard, mainly just a couple of cards as options and why they're here in my sideboard. So Dismember, this is a 1 of in my sideboard. Good against Wolf Run, stuff like that. Just because you want another card that can get rid of Ink Moth whenever it transforms into a creature. Also, it can get rid of stuff like Titans, anything like that. If not necessarily that it gets rid of it, but you can dwarf it down and then block it with a smaller creature and get rid of it. So Dismember is really good in that sense. So Dismember here. Surgical Extraction is good against anything that likes to interact with graveyards. I only run it as a 1 of again. But stuff like Undying, also against Control, if you want to get rid of their stuff, I don't really side it in for that. On the off chance that there is some graveyard shenanigans like Reanimator, I like using Surgical Extraction and getting rid of stuff that they might be choosing to reanimate. Especially stuff like Angel of Glory's Rise, where they can reanimate all their humans. So Surgical Extraction is pretty nice. Negate, actually run it as a 4 of against Control, because mainly this deck is built against aggro. So against Control, a lot of the board wiper elements are going to change out, like Day of Judgment. So Negate becomes a 4 of in the deck, and it's highly suggested because they're not going to be able to do anything with their Planeswalkers if you keep on negating it. Ratchet Bomb against Control gets rid of Entreat stuff. Also against tokens is really good. Divine Offering against Ink Moth is really good. Against swords is really good. Stuff like Delver. And Faith's Shield, the last but definitely not least card to mention. And this is because of Zealous Conscripts. You don't want them to take your Planeswalkers. You don't want them to take your creatures, anything like that. Give them protection. It's only 1 white mana, and it can actually really change the game, and it has in a few cases for me, just running this card as a 2-of. And as I forgot to mention, Divine Offering's a 3-of. Ratchet Bomb's a 2-of in my sideboard. So yeah, those are just some small suggestions, not my entire sideboard, but some suggestions that you guys can take into your own competitive meta and try to build your deck. So that about does it for today's Deck Tech. If you guys enjoyed it, please remember to like, favorite, and especially subscribe for more daily Magic the Gathering content. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and have a wonderful, fun-filled Magic the Gathering day.